Hotep.
Hotep, Shalom, Alafia, Assalamu alaikum, Islam, Moors. We'd like to thank everybody who came out today for this great event we're about to have, because these brothers got a lot of information that they're going to unfold to us today. So without further ado, we're going to cut through the chase. We've been waiting long enough. We're going to bring up Brother True Master, who's going to give y'all a little bit of what he's going to be doing today, tomorrow. Sorry about that. So would y'all give this brother a round of applause? This is his first time in Chicago, so we want to welcome this brother. Hopefully we can bring him back again. You ready, True?
Today I'm going to be talking briefly about the metaphysics of nobility, commerce, and karma. I've found some very interesting parallels and synchronicity between commerce and karma. And I think that a lot of our problems as a family stem from not understanding certain basic absolute laws like the law of cause and effect, which governs both commerce and karma. As the original indigenous family, we are the primary and principal creditors of all activity that goes on the planet. Now, when I say creditor, for those of you who have an understanding about fiat currency, we know that it's fraud to presume to be a creditor when you're not loaning someone something of substance. But when I use the term creditor in regards to us as a people, I'm talking about us being the true possessors of substance as a principal form or source for everything that goes on this planet. Now, Tahuti, when we study ancient history, and there are different forms of Tahuti throughout the ancient world, we find that it says, what he knew he carved on stone, a metaphor for the physical plane, and then hid most of the information. These sacred symbols of the cosmic elements he hid away using the secrets of Osiris, keeping and maintaining silence that younger ages of the cosmic time clock might seek them out. Thoth was said to have succeeded in understanding the mysteries of the heavens and to have revealed them by inscribing them in sacred books, which he then hid here on earth, intending that they should be searched for by future generations but found by those of the bloodline. Again, when dealing with nobility, there's always an emphasis on bloodline, because bloodline is the basis of nobility. But the bloodline we're talking about is the indigenous bloodline. Now, from a metaphysical perspective, when we talk about he hid them away using the secrets of Osiris, what I found that being that Tahuti is a recorder of information, he records them on the physical plane. He actually records them in stone, or the mineral kingdom, which records information. Now, to be a member of the mineral kingdom, or to be classified as a true mineral, a substance must be solid and have a crystal structure. Okay, it must also be naturally occurring, homogeneous substance with a defined chemical composition. Now, what's interesting is, it says that there are 14 basic lattice arrangements of atoms in 3 dimensions in the 6 crystal systems. All crystal structures currently recognized fit into one of these 14 arrangements. Now, 14, what does it sound familiar to us with? The 14 parts of Osiris. Because the mineral kingdom is where information is that were stored in the crystals, what you must realize also, your blood is a crystalline structure, and it contains information that's encoded in it. And again, likewise, when I was referring to the bloodline being the ones who would be really the only ones who would be able to decipher and decode a lot of the information that is written hyperdimensionally in crystal structures, in natural stones. And again, that's why it's important for us to get in tune with natural stones and crystals as a means of balancing ourselves and balancing our energy. Now, one of the things that I want to relate when dealing with nobility is that nobility is the source of the commercial realm. It's where the commercial realm is the substance, so to speak. I was speaking with Brother Rashid, and I was speaking about how the word substance is a compound word of sub and stance. And it's basically the underlying principle defining any particular reality. For example, on a subatomic level, black matter or dark matter is the predator of the visible spectrum of light that we see. So we can use correspondence to correspond a lot of synchronicities with commerce and karma, because they're both basically the result of cause and effect and interaction. And when you look up commerce, you find that commerce is, there's a lot of definitions. They define sexual intercourse as an aspect of commerce, marriage, even a conversation where you're exchanging views is considered commerce. Now, one of the things that's interesting, when you're exchanging something in commerce, there's a balance. But the imbalance comes in when someone owes someone something. Because what I've realized is that no one owes anyone anything. Whenever you assume the position of debtor, you're doing so by not balancing your own records. Because everything's supposed to be on an exchange basis. So whenever you're talking to somebody, and this cannot just apply to, the commercial realm, but whenever you're talking to somebody on any level, if there's an even exchange, no one should walk away feeling like they owe somebody something or somebody owes them something. Whenever we project that kind of attitude into the equation, we pretty much leave an account open that has to be balanced by some other person or some other force outside of ourselves. Now, in commerce, again, you'll find that when you study commerce, you can't specify a form of payment for commercial transactions. Likewise, when you leave accounts open, anything can balance out that account for you. And this is why it's important for us to balance out all of our accounts karmically as well as commercially, because exchange is the basic fundamental aspect of commerce and karma. So, as opposed to creditor and debtor. Now, again, as being indigenous people, first I want to explain the four basic, what I call the tetragrammaton of commerce and karma, or the fourfold aspect of energy governing all aspects of karma, is acceptance, conditional acceptance, argument, and silence. It's very important that whenever you're dealing with anyone on any level, you have to either be in a position of acceptance, or at least conditional acceptance, or you're in what's called dishonor. Whenever you're in dishonor, it's like you're leaving something, like leaving a piece of food somewhere to fester and cause all kind of maggots to materialize out of thin air and basically feed off of that which is in a stagnated condition. So it's real important important to stay in acceptance or conditional acceptance. Now, I was explaining to a brother the other day that if you engage in a fight, unless you're attacked, it's no justification for it in all actuality. And no one wins a fight or an argument, even if you whip somebody out in the street. Pretty much look foolish for fighting in the street. So these two positions are dishonorable. Whenever any offer is made to you, and an offer doesn't have to come in the form of a contract. Okay? An offer is simply an offer. So whenever someone makes an offer to you, it's dishonorable to respond without at least a conditional acceptance. Like, a simple aspect of that would be, let's say somebody asks you just for, would you like a glass of wine, a glass of water, whatever. Actually, the honorable thing, even if you don't want it, instead of just saying no, what's a way to accept it? And anybody can think of a way, if someone asks you, would you like, make an offer to you for something to eat or something to drink, and you think of a way to accept it conditionally, but, not accept it, or not agree to go to the contract in that aspect. Can anybody think of a way to do that?
No, thank you. I'm not finished. Did you say?
He just said it.
Okay.
What did you say?
No, thank you. I'm not finished. I didn't hear it. No, thank you.
He said something, he just said,
No, thank you. I'm not
no,
thirsty.
thank you. Now, once you start really understanding, which I'm going to go in depth, this is just a little intro, because I'm introing for the brother, and I'm going to go into this in depth tomorrow to show you that whenever you're interacting with people, it's a way to interact that will at all times keep you in a state of balance and diffuse all negative energy that comes towards you. Sometimes you do it naturally when people charge you with a negative attitude, and instead of owning it or buying what they're selling, you accept it, but then you offer it back for settlement and closure without becoming dishonorable and by default taking a debt that really is not yours. Or so, because like I said, nobody really owes anybody anything. And if you do feel like you owe anybody something, you are basically not balancing your own accounts or having accountability, personal accountability for whatever you're dealing with. Now, another thing that's very important is it's okay to make mistakes. As original people, we have a conscience, so whenever we make a mistake, we usually get a signal or flash from our conscience which says, you shouldn't have did that, or you shouldn't have said that. It's very important not to negate that voice, because we all get that voice. And some of us say, the hell with it, we keep on moving, and we create more and more imbalances for ourselves. It takes away from your personal power, from your magnetic, from your aura. Whenever you make a mistake and your consciousness says, or you just feel a shift in energy and you go, maybe I shouldn't have said that or I shouldn't have did that, you need to take account of that at that particular moment and close out that karmic debt. Because if you leave it open, anything can be exchanged to close that account from any force in the universe, and the universe is always seeking to balance things out. So when you get that conscious thought in your head that I shouldn't have said that or I shouldn't have did that, it's very important for you to acknowledge that and then ask yourself for forgiveness and forgive yourself. Now that might seem kind of simple, but that's how simple it is. When there are people that we love that do things we don't like, and such as family members, because you can't really get away from family members, you have to accept it and love them in spite of what they did. It's pretty much the same thing. And people who are not able to close these accounts out, or say they really don't have self-love, or they're afraid of rejection on some level from someone else. So it's really important for you to balance out your accounts when you when you reflect on anything that you've done that is not in balance. Okay? Also, Tahuti and Ma'at, as Tahuti is like a record keeper, and Ma'at is an accountant. And at the end of your life, we all are familiar with the story, the judgment scene, where Tahuti and Ma'at balance your heart against a feather to see if you're worthy of immortality. Again, that is symbolic of the basic understanding that we have to be accountable. Okay? Accounting is a term used in karma and commerce. There's many terms used in karma and commerce that when you really start to look at it, you realize it's really the same thing. And it's basically taking responsibility and accountability for your actions, because if you don't do it now, someone or something is going to take care of it later for you. So it's real important. Now, again, as the indigenous people, we are the primary creditors. Okay? These were some slides I just wanted to show you. I was speaking to a brother earlier. This is Thomas Johnson. He's the great-grandson of Anthony Johnson, who is on record as the first slave owner in the United States, as far as lifelong slavery is concerned. Prior to 1655, the only thing on records in the United States was indentured servitude. His great-grandfather went to court to fight for the right to keep his servants for life, because prior to 1655, the only thing on record was indentured servitude. Now, when you do your research, and there's plenty of information that you can find on Anthony Johnson, you'll find that he's listed as a straight-up man of African descent. Now, he was listed as married to a white woman, and his son is listed as marrying a white woman, and his son is listed as marrying a white woman. So there are generations and generations of original people who were either in positions of prominence, even if from this negative perspective, that we can find that Caucasians have always married into positions of prominence and authority. There's tremendous history on that in the United States. This is Pt1, who's listed as the last Mexican governor of African descent, because he was part of the Pico tribe, or one of the indigenous tribes of Central America that was in possession of most of California and a large part of the western half of Mexico. Now, he married a woman who looks like a Spaniard or a Mexican or a mixed woman. But again, there's a lot of history of indigenous people west of the Mississippi, because you got to remember also slavery, everything west of the Mississippi was not annexed to the United States until right before slavery ended. So there's a lot of history of indigenous people who were the founders of many of the states, as well as in positions of prominence, like Maria Valdez, and a lot of them have Latin names, who was the owner of what is now called Beverly Hills, and Francisco Reyes, who held the land rights to most of the San Fernando Valley. As creditor, even from the corporate realm, what a lot of people don't know is that it was a black man who single-handedly financed the American Revolution. His name is Chaim Solomon. Now, he was a Sephardic Jew who fled Spain during the Inquisition and with the help of the Ottomans. In my lecture on the original Catholic and Protestant Moorish nobility of Europe, because a lot of us are only familiar with the Islamic Moorish nobility of Europe, and don't realize that there was a common bond and a common effort between the two. In fact, the Islamic Moors are the ones who helped to reestablish the Christian and Catholic Moorish nobility of Europe. But this is a brother, a Sephardic Jew, who escaped Spain during the Inquisition with the help of the Ottomans, Moors, who were in control of Poland at the time, and he came to the United States, and apparently the Star of David and the other, the 13 feathers and stripes were in honor of him and his part in designing and financing single-handedly the entire American Revolution. It's amazing information. I had never heard of the brother, but there's tremendous information. In fact, the Jewish Historical Society, the American Jewish Historical Society, in the 70s, they redeemed his history because he was never paid back, and he actually died, and they buried him in an unmarked grave, which is very disrespectful since he had actually financed the entire American Revolution. But they created a commemorative medal in his honor, which they bestowed on a black man, Mayor Tom Bradley of California. So again, from a substantive perspective, we are the creditors as indigenous people, and so tomorrow I'll be going into a lot of the synchronicities between commerce and karma, because we need to balance our accounts in terms of moving forward. In balancing our accounts, I think we have to take accountability for a lot of things that have taken place because, as you can see, there was a black man, and we have to co-sign everything. That's why they had the movie John Hancock, because really nothing can go on in this dimension unless we co-sign, because we are the true nobles. And so, even from a mundane level, it was an original man who was the finance of the American Revolution. And from a moral and ethical perspective, it was a man who was responsible for the establishment of lifelong slavery here in the United States. It was also a Moor. So accountability is essential for us to balance out our accounts and to move forward. Okay? This was a letter George Washington had wrote. And it was interesting because he was addressing the ransom. And in doing my research, I found that there's tremendous letters from George Washington to the Emperor of Morocco and Algiers for ransom of citizens. Now, this is just one example. There are tons. It's almost unbelievable how many ransom notes you can find, as well as appropriations for payment of these ransoms. And there's always for United States citizens. Now, what are American citizens doing way over there at that time when, travel was not the way it is now? It is my opinion that the Algiers they're talking about is what is in New Orleans. And after the Louisiana Purchase, which is in synchronicity with the destabilization of the Holy Roman Empire in Europe, which was the indigenous sovereign empire in Europe, there's a simultaneous destabilization of the indigenous network that was here, that was still intact west of the Mississippi. But again, there was a lot of dishonorable agreements that took place, and a lot was on our part. So, a lot of accountability I think we have to take in regards to a lot of the things that go on, because if not, we're leaving accounts open for anything to happen. Now, what's interesting here is, after he talks about making arrangements for the payment of the ransom, he then goes down here and says, while it is proper our citizens should know he's talking about the rest of America, not the ones who are in captivity, but how they have to work to keep all this kind of information from them, keep all of this information suppressed. Okay? He says, while it's proper our citizens should know that subjects which so much concern their interests and their feelings have duly engaged the attention of their legislator and executive, it would still be improper that some particulars of this communication should be made known. Confidential conversation stated in one of the last letters sent herewith is one of these. Both justice and policy require that the source of that information should remain secret, so a knowledge of the sums meant to have been given for peace and ransom might have a disadvantaged influence on future proceedings for the same objects. I just thought that would be interesting. I'm gonna wrap it up with that right now, and let Brother Rashid take over. And tomorrow I'm gonna go into the metaphysics of nobility, commerce, and karma. And I'm also going to be talking about how to repair your credit, to show you how to effectively repair your credit in a very short period of time. I've used the principles myself, and they've been very effective. Okay? So, without further ado, Brother Rashid, you ready?
Yeah. Give Brother one back. Can someone turn on the light? Turn on. My second time speaking in Chicago, and as usual, I love it. I was born in Chicago, so this is it's always a historic account, something wonderful for me to come here often, so you can get something. So, pass me the iPod. This is, this presentation is actually an extension of another. It's actually an extension of another presentation that I did here, perhaps, 2 months ago, at the Moore Science Temple on College Road. Peace to those brothers. Thank you for the brothers who brought me, Brother D'Angelo, Brother Tahuri Mali, and Brother Yoel, and everyone who was instrumental in making this happen. It's not easy to bring people from other places to your town. It's a process that goes, into it. I'd like to also thank Brother Robert Crutcher, his wife, and beautiful family, for also coming from all the way from Kentucky to participate with us today, and as well inviting me to Kentucky 2 weeks ago, and we had a wonderful lecture there, and that was beautiful. And by the way, Kentucky, if you've never been to France, let's go to Kentucky. It's almost like the fleur-de-lis, one of our more symbols, is everywhere. The architecture is everywhere, and they get the G off and call everything, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali in Kentucky is just a way of essentially venerating the legacy, the Moorish legacy. And we are in a Renaissance period where all of these things that essentially we forgot are now coming back into the forefront. So my focus, we have the Brother Omari L. with law. We have Brother Valentine with the metaphysics. We have Brother Bobby Himmett with the dark magic. We have so much. Dr. Doug Blair, you all here in Chicago have a master of the highest order here with you. We just had him in New York. He gave a dynamic lecture. It's awesome to see a man of his age and stature be able to still present and delegate his affairs in such a manner. So So fighting all the way to the end is an awesome thing. Now, essentially, my focus, what I teach, everyone has their niche, so to speak. What I teach is primarily the secret teachings of Israel. That's what we'll call it. And they're very nebulous in that it's hard to capture these secret teachings. And there's only a particular language that you can utilize to capture these secret teachings. And the language that we utilize is the language of metaphysics. Metaphysics has been termed different things in accordance, and when it's been given to different people in accordance to their culture and their dharma, their spiritual role in the material world, they call it different things. Kabbalah is nothing but an extension of Commission science, and Commission science is nothing but a localized experience of the Kushite spiritual endeavor. When I say Kush, I want to illustrate for people because oftentimes because we all been educated in school, we often get caught up in wanting to define everything as Egypt. And when you look at the continent, this is my continent. You look at the continent after the Belgian conference, what essentially used to be the entire thing called Ethiopia or Nubia, whatever, has been now localized in this area, right? So what happens is when people say Egypt and they speak of the spiritual legacy that you left in the region, you automatically get everything twisted and you localize the whole spiritual endeavor in this one area. The priesthood who created the hieroglyphics, who really knew how to read it, and who set up a monarchy, all lived in this region, okay? This is where the science came from. This is where the warriors were. So all of these images that we see of Egyptian priesthood and people sitting and doing all these lavish and wonderful things and looking clean and all that, they were actually just occupying a region of the planet that we, in our Kushite science, knew that the equal distribution of the land's mass on the entire globe all equal the same distance. If you create something right here, you can centralize the focus of the entire geodesic world. All of the telluric force and all of the rocks and minerals on the planet are actually storehouses for information that channel to you cosmic imperative. Okay, so now the actual material used to make these pyramids were materials that are essentially known today to assist in anti-gravity and things of that nature. So everyone knows now with physics, and we've gone into the world of quantum physics, that anytime you have a concentration of force, you bring to you energy. So if you ever seen a pyramid, I know Brother Crutch and his family have been to Kim, I don't know, other people perhaps have been there, you know that it is a monstrosity. It is tremendous, this pyramid. And it was not just there to look at and say, oh, we smart, we deep, we sharp, look what we built. It was an actual machine. And if you know anything about shapes of things, the Tekken in particular, called the obelisks, I've seen them in quite a few places here as you cross over bridges. They have short ones. You stand on one side, it can balance your energy and make you calm, and if you're too high, if you're too calm, it can raise your vibration. So the machine is actually an ion machine. You need negative ions to complete a significant thought from the beginning to the end. So our people were on to something. Another significant thing is that they only built these civilizations, right, by bodies of water. By bodies of water. They had a connection to water. The sound for water is The sound for love is myrrh, right? Myrrh. The symbol for myrrh or myrrh was an owl. The owl is a symbolic personification of something that can essentially see in all directions. And it is a source for information. It represents, when you put an owl in front of an establishment, it's a source for information. So the meaning for or the symbol of the owl or water, when you see it in language, it means from. We'll demonstrate that as we present. So now, the last time I came, we spoke about more sorcery, but I just did some little perfunctory, set the little stage for us to be able to speak about essentially what we're going to speak about today. Now, when we spoke before, we were describing the elements required for the magical process, and we were covering a little hard copy and stuff like that. But essentially, let me ask you folks, what is sorcery? Essentially, what is magic? Anyone? Science. Want to answer science?
Balancing out the universe. Through the
Balancing,
use of metaphysics.
balancing energy,
Through the use of metaphysics.
From a high plane to a low plane.
bringing higher energy from the higher plane to the lower plane. Anyone else? Anyone?
The thing is called a tune.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Magic is called that cool. Okay. Yes, sir.
The ability to affect change through thought and will.
Very good answer by everyone. The last answer was as well as yours. Makes the connection. The brother said bringing things down from up high. The brother interjected into his statement, utilizing essentially the mind and focusing. So in order for you to bring anything into focus, in order for you to bring anything to a focus, and if we have a conversation, what is essentially, what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to get to what? A result. An end result. An end result. At the end, when something dies, what happens to it? At the end of something, it dies, right? Right? At the end of one thing comes another, a beginning of another. So the brother said, we're trying to bring things to the end. I wanted to say the point. The point is synonymous with the end and the beginning. The point is synonymous with the cross of death. The final letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the cross. The first is a spinning cross, an ox. The ox dies at the end of the alphabet. Okay? Now, each sound that you use, each sound that you say, each time you create a sound to be an emblem of your thinking, you are participating in a magical process. In order for you to essentially use magic, you have to disturb the medium. The medium is your supplies for the magical process. Now, what are your supplies? If you're creating magic, what are your supplies? What are you making your magic essentially with? With what? Imagination. Wonderful. What else? That's kind of like on the end point, but what are your physical tools that you're using for your magical process?
Vibrational fire, water.
Vibration, fire, water, what else? Music. You can use music, what else?
Stones, crystals.
Stones or crystals. Energy. Now I want everyone to take your hand like this. Take your hand like this. And I want you to blow on your hand softly. I'm going like this. And I want you to hear a sound. I want you to go. You hear the sound?
Yeah.
Okay, that is all the tools you need for magic. That's your altar right there. Everything that just came out your mouth. You had fire. You felt the heat, didn't you? Did you feel the moisture?
Yep.
That's your water, right? Your air, you felt your air, and the pressure was what? The earth, right? So now when you speak a thing into existence, when I say, yo, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to get a bankroll, I'm essentially participating in a magical process. I have created and established for myself a focal point. A focal point that will reverberate throughout the universe and create for a limit. And within the limit is the environment for the outcome of my intentions. See? You can have nothing in this world unless you place limits upon it. The way to place limitations upon a thing is to give it a number. A number is something that is very specific, very to the point. It does never deviate from its nature. A number, when you utilize magic, a mathematician is the one who never loses. The mathematician uses math and magic as his guide. Okay? So everything in the sentient physical universe has a number attenuated to it. Everything essentially almost has like an SS number to it. That when you utilize it, you utilize the number, you can tune yourself into that which you beckon and call. Thus is the mystery in the Kabbalistic secret of the secret teachings of Israel as to why in the motif, the symbolic one, why Adam, one of his beneficent gifts upon him was the ability to name the various things in nature. That, in a sense, was his ability, and it says in the script, that gave him power and dominion over them simply by knowing their names. Simply by knowing the name. Simply. So this whole fight, this whole endeavor, this whole thing that we're trying to do here, living in this world amongst our enemy simply wants one thing. He wants your name. Doesn't he? He wants your name because in your name he has your number, and in your number he has your frequency, and then your frequency is the cloak of your very soul. See? Your soul is the real participant in the reality. This person that you think you are, the tall, dark, and handsome, the person that you try to be and you try to aggrandize his physical body is nothing but a byproduct of the artificial intelligence that the evolving matter presents to your conscious mind and makes you think that you are who you think you are, when in essence you're not even this. You know, you are source. You are source. So the pain, the strife, the struggles, and all that are superfluous holographic images promoted by the preconditioned aspect of your existence, the fear templates that have been established. You are soul, soul is light, and light is the breath. Okay? So to use magic, you got to use your source. And your source, you are the rook, the life force. Right? You could stop eating and survive a few days. You stop drinking water and survive a few days, but you better not stop breathing. Right? Why? Because breath is life force. The breath is life force. The breath is life force. So now, the last time we spoke about sorcery, and the Moorish type, I had to quickly, I don't think maybe perhaps if I didn't effectively do it so, I can do it now. Define for you when we say what is, because people are like, what do you mean Moroccan sorcery? What do you mean Moorish sorcery? Well, the term itself, Moor, is simply an old term to describe the world's indigenous people who were all like us, different of color, but of different gradations, right? When you got two light, you had a name for that too. Melungeons and things of that nature, right? But essentially the term more, if you look at any of the Shakespearean literature, which is actually Francis Bacon, they didn't have a term to describe you but one. More. And when they wanted to describe your skin color, they would, in their calcified perception, always synonymously associate you with the lower depths of hell, and that the Moors were these warriors from hell who came to just destroy everything, right? You know, real fearful. However, when you look in the text inside of the Bible, your name is different. Your name is different. They call you a Chaldean in the book of Daniel. They call you in the English, they call you a Chaldean. Nebuchadnezzar asked his children to be taught the science of the Chaldeans. I go to the text, I look up the word Chaldean, I localize specifically what are they saying Chaldean. I've said this quite a few times on my presentations. You have to keep reiterating to people, the Bible is anglicized. It is impossible to render an English interpretation from the Hebrew. It does not fit. They are not semantically suited to address one psychic perception to another. If I told you a Spanish joke, you laugh only if you understood Spanish. If I try to say it in English, there would be key nuances missing in it that might be the punchline. And you'd be like, you know, essentially that's not funny, right? So what happens is people get the text and they add poetry to the text. They take what's essentially in the text and poeticize it. So when you get to the term, and this is another thing, politically, archaeologists will not have work if they do not tell the lies, right? If they don't lie and say who, the people who financed them, as they put the spade in the ground and pull it up in their first findings, if they don't change the name, if they say, for instance, Sir Henry Rawlinson, upon finding the Sumerian finds, the first thing that he said, him and his French guy, they were Orientalists, the first thing that they called these remains were Kush. They said, these people are from Kush, right? They're by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. They got the same cosmology. They build civilizations around bodies of water, and they make pyramidal structures, and they call them, we call ziggurats, right? So the first thing he called them was Kush. When they had to prepare their papers, of course, the name turned to Sumer because they couldn't call it Kush because Kush means essentially you, right? So to put themselves in history and in your mystery, which is the Torah, right? They had the name Sumer Shinar. They called Sumer based off the word Shinar from text to put themselves in there. Whenever you hear someone call themselves an Ashkenazi, right? There's no such thing as an Ashkenazi Jew. It's only served as an identifying marker for nationality, right? For nationality. And it's really a false one. Even the term Sephardi, it doesn't really exist. There's no such thing. When you look at the terms, those are words which describe personages or unknown tribes inside of the text. Even the term Moabite, it's not speaking about a specific and particular person. All of the Bible is describing is only astrotheology, the connection between the astrological world and the physical world, and your consciousness which stands in between it, and how you meld the two. You're the one who brings celestial imperative down into the physical world. You do it with your imagination, and you do it with symbolisms, and you do it by putting specific symbols next to specific concepts, canonizing it, putting it in the minds of the populace, and then we do the work in the astral plane in that fashion. What happens is the astral plane is like toxically poisoned. Like you ever took you ever like been behind a bus and they blowing all the carcinogens? That's what the astral plane is operating like right now, with a bunch of calcified perception from the Caucasoid mind. He wants to be the great secret master of this continent, that he wants to be a mason, he wants to be all these fancy things, right? And he's doing it, right, in an imaginary world, right, that is strengthening in power. Do you know that around every group of people there's an entity that is automatically summoned and all connected to our collective conscious? It's called an egregore. We have one every time we assemble, every time they have parades and festivals. There's always a group spirit which connects everyone together. That group spirit has everything that you're thinking about, everything that you desire, everything within it, right? Now, when we're operating in the physical world and we're thinking the thoughts given to us in the words given to us by this enemy culture, we are giving life to a magical system that we are not benefiting from. It's almost like we're doing the work and we're not saving our money. We're just spending it, going back to work, spending it, right? The reason why I teach Kabbalah is because I know that it's not Caucasian, has nothing to do with that at all. Kabbalah is your secret teachings of understanding the underlying factors needed for you to do something, anything which allows you the ability to control the circumstances surrounding your life and the material world. You need symbols to operate outside of the physical dynamic. In order for you to manipulate anything, you have to have the symbol to it. If I'm using a typewriter, I cannot type nothing unless I got the key that has the symbol to it to express myself. You understand? So now, what we are doing here is we're trying to leave these classes, when we speak about Kabbalah, knowledgeable more so in the area of symbol literacy, right? Symbol literacy is very important. When the Democratic Convention, on the cover of the papers in New York, the New York Daily News and the New York Post, we had a picture of where they were going to have Mr. Obama. And Mr. Obama was situated in between two pillars, right? And then inside it says Deco 1. It says Deco 1 inside the picture in between these two pillars. So what is Deco? What is Deca? 10. Deca is 10. Deca is 10, like December is really the 10th month, not the 12th. Deca is 10, right? So 10, and it said Deca or Deco 1. So that means 10, 1, right? Or 101, right? So in the symbol, they had Mr. Obama standing in between two pillars. Whenever someone stands in between two pillars, what is essentially going down? What's happening?
Ritual?
Excuse me?
A ritual?
A ritual. Now give me an example of where you saw two pillars. In symbols. The lodge, where else? Who reads their Bible? Hercules. Who tore down towers in the Bible? Samson. There's a lot of stories about towers being taken out. Another symbol of towers being taken out is when they gouge out the two eyes. Samson's eyes were taken out. Also were the puppet king Zedekiah, who was placed in his kingship for 11 years. Hello? 11 years. His eyes were gouged out of his head, and he was a puppet king placed there by King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay. They utilize your Chaldean sorcery that you left The same way you left your tarot cards inside of the 52, the deck of 52 cards. You left divination inside of the CeeLo. We play CeeLo in New York and play craps, I guess, whatever else, right? You left divination in the dice. You left divination in cards. Whenever you knew that darkness ensued, you automatically took your mystery and you turned your mystery into a cryptic thing. You made different layers to your science. And when I go to church, I can go to church on Sunday if I like. If I so choose, I can go to church, I can go to Juma on Friday, I can go to synagogue when I'm doing something's assembled, right? And then I can go there and I can participate in the dialogue because I have the keys of simple literacy. When he says that Jesus is my Lord and Savior, I say, hell yeah. I understand what Jesus is, I understand what the Lord is, and I understand what a Savior is. However, does this make what the Christians do essentially right? Absolutely not. They are not initiating people. We do not have an initiation system established clearly, in my opinion, where we are initiating people into the higher mindset of simple literacy. Freemasonry offers that, but Freemasonry has become a club for barbecues and dances and a bunch of big fat eating Christian niggas sitting around acting like they're smart with a bunch of secrets that you can buy off the fucking internet.
That's right.
Okay? So it's not even that, there ain't no secret. The secret of Freemasonry is revealed to the individual. The individual. And any organization that you can come up and become a member is bullshit. All right? Moorish science included. We need to third, fourth generation Moors. We need to start tapping people. Fuck members. We don't need nobody to come. We need to pick the best and the brightest among us. Keep the doors closed for the suckers who's coming in with all of the calumniators. No more membership. No more membership. No more membership. You get tapped and chose, and once you get tapped and chose, you are given, in that instance, a responsibility and a duty. And a part of the contract is if you don't fulfill it, then you don't receive the benefits of what it is essentially we have to offer in our organizational structure. Okay? So the substance of what we intend to impart today is also with magic and sorcery, we also have to speak about effective communication. Because you can make a wish in the magical realm. You can say right now, I want $50,000, right? $50,000 in the universe. As soon as you say it, the universe starts working to create your destiny. The universe has a relationship with mind. It says, whatever you think about mine, I'm going to make it happen. If you fear something, I'm going to bring it to you. If you hate something, I'm going to bring it to you. If you love it, I'm going to bring it to you. Right? It starts the process immediately. So if you say, yeah, I want $50,000, and you're not clear, the $50,000 can be the insurance money from the car that your wife drove and crashed into a goddamn building. You got your $50,000 at the expense of someone else's loss. You understand? You have to be very, very clear with your intentions as to what you're going to say. Whenever they call out, there's two types of magic. There's two types of sorcery. There's the sorcery that you address matter straight on, where you want something or someone to do exactly what you want it to do, and you're speaking to it. And then the other form is the form that you summon, when you summon entities to come serve you. Right? Now, what happens when you use the latter is you create Caucasians. Y'all, you're responsible for creating who you now have termed essentially the devil. Shit, you're the devil to him. You heard? Your black ass is the devil to them. Because he's like, God, I didn't ask to be here. What the hell did you bring me here for? But since you brought me here, now that I'm here, black man, I'm going to whoop your ass until you remember how to tame me again.
Bingo.
Because we created, whenever you create a magical process, you immediately accept the fact that you have dominion over things. Okay? Whenever somebody tells you that they over you and you agree to it, when you go into the courtroom, that's a magic going down.
Yes, sir.
He's dressed in the color of Saturn.
Yes, sir.
He's utilizing that whole thing, and you have to use quorum and accept him as being something far beyond the peckerwood that he is. You got to address him as this pontiff, like that. So the magical process is, of course, yours. You own it. The outcome belongs to you. I see the brother has some orgone. Crystal, do you sell them?
Yeah.
Now, these are very, very powerful. These are very powerful. I have never seen this one in particular. This is beautiful. I can already feel them on my arm. I can feel the chills in my arm. We're familiar with these in New York. Brother Azariah sells them. We got him to essentially also, me per se, Sister Suzar has a wonderful treatise on them. And Dr. Blair's diodes are mapped after the same principle. Now look at this one in particular. These are also awesome for magical processes. But what I wanted to show you in particular is this piece here. The brother has put the Moorish, and it's giving me chills. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, this stuff is powerful. The brother has encapsulated into this here the Moroccan flag with your colors, the red and the green, right? In Taoist philosophy, these colors symbolize agitation. They are also contrasting colors. Red and green vibrate off of one another, right? So what happens is they start vibrating. They create the vibratory force for imagination to ensue and create the platform to create the means by which to bring the process into account. So now here you have an orgone crystal that essentially generates the energy needed to thwart negative energy or the energies that will stop you from performing your stuff, and it gives you the focus and the focus, beautiful stuff, brother. The focus and the focus required for you to pull it off. So what you're manipulating when you manipulate magic is you're manipulating women. And when I say women, you're manipulating the female. The physical world is the world of substance. It is the cloak of the unseen. The black man precedes the womb as divine potential. He comes into the physical world as God through her. He exists before creation as divine potential, but participates in the physical world through her. Through her. She is the cloak of things, right? She's the cloak of things. Brother Tremaster is going to speak about tomorrow. I hope he segues into his science of the mitochondrial DNA, so you can see why that is so very significant. It's something that's fixed. You can't deviate. We are the ones who introduce something into the equation that alters that, and only we can do it. Right? So I'm going to save that for my brother. Now, in language, how we doing? Can you see that? In language,